なぜわしを助けた。海を殺そうとしたのに。
Being down bad. We've all been there before. Whether it's being rejected by the person you've been crushing on for months, having your bank account literally hit single digits, or catching yourself on Cornhub for the 6th time today. You should probably stop that. No matter which angle you come from, being down bad is an experience we can all relate to, as all people living perfect lives, so there are bound to be moments in them that we just, really want to forget about. And this is where Fujimoto's Chainsaw Man comes into play. You see, the world of Chainsaw Man is no different from your average shonen anime world. There's evil forces lurking around, taking innocent people's lives. A task force is created that's committed to stopping said evil forces, and the task force uses their supernatural powers to save the world. If this were any other shonen like Naruto, Demon Slayer, or Full Metal Alchemist, this type of world calls for a chosen one. A main character who is up for the task for saving the world from its evil, and more importantly, a noble motivation to do so. Naruto wants to become Hokage, Tanjiro wants to save his sister, Edward Elric wants him and his brother's bodies back, and Denji just wants to fondle some tits. And this becomes a breath of comedic fresh air, as our shonen main character essentially becomes the embodiment of being down bad, thus uniting everybody who is watching Chainsaw Man. And in the anime community, it's been kind of a meme at this point that shonen main characters don't really have time to have girlfriends, because it's like, can Tanjiro really find someone he wants to love if he has to fight 3 upper moons by next Tuesday? Probably not. But here we have Denji on the other hand, who essentially girls is the only thing he can think about, and saving the world is the last of his worries. And then once you remember, Denji is just a 16-year-old boy feeling a little horny just like the rest of us when we were 16, you feel more connected to him, more than any other main character, because honestly, he just like me for real. And this is what the show's about. The show is a satire anime, with our main character having no desire to save the world, and the only reason he's doing so is to get with a girl. Denji is just a funny character, we're supposed to laugh at him, haha, and we're supposed to tweet, oh my god, Denji just like me for real. He's a funny character. Right?
Denji, お前は何のために戦ってる？
この生活を守るためかな。
I'm Designing Crib, and this is Chainsaw Man. In order to understand that scene, you need to first understand Denji. You need to understand the things that happened to him in his past that made him the person he is in the present. You see, Denji's childhood is very lonely. He seemingly grew up without a mother around and had a father who was working his ass off to pay off his debt. So he spent most of his childhood all alone. And on top of all of that, Denji was poor. Poor to an extent where he couldn't afford nice clothes, afford a nice meal, and actually, his poverty was so bad that his father's debt that he owed to the Yakuza was so much for him to handle, he ended up taking his own life. And while Denji's life was already terrible as is, watching his father commit suicide was a launching point for his character and essentially started Chainsaw Man. As you know, if somebody with debt passes away, their debt is now transferred on to their next of kin. So in terms of Denji's case, Denji has to pay off this massive debt that his father owed to the Yakuza, and he had no way of getting it. Along with selling off his organs in order to obtain money, Denji befriends the Chainsaw Devil, who he names Pokita, and it's with Pokita's help that Denji essentially becomes a bounty hunter to kill devils for money, and now he has a constant source of income to pay off his debt. But the amount of debt that he owes is so massive that no amount of devil hunting will be able to help pay off this debt. So at the end of the day, Denji is still subjected to the lifelong sentence of being impoverished until he dies, but the only thing that's different now, he actually has to risk his life fighting devils in order to maintain this, or else he's dead too. So Denji spends his childhood fighting devils for pay and not being able to afford food at home, and he does this well into his teenage years too. But over the years, he's developed a very close friendship with the Chainsaw Devil Pokita, and he really views him as his only friend. In a life full of poverty and the looming fear of death, someone like Pokita for Denji really was a beacon of hope for him, and really the only thing he could cling on to in order to stay happy in this life. But at the end of episode 1, when Denji is double-crossed by the Yakuza and is essentially given as a sacrifice to the zombie devil, Pokita has to save his life by giving up his own, and thus leaving Denji all alone at the end of the episode. all alone with nothing. And it's in this state Denji is in, pretty much existing as a former shell of himself, is why when Makima finds him in the abandoned building, the only words he can utter to her is "hug me." And after agreeing with Makima to join the special division with her, Denji makes it his life mission in order to feel the touch of a woman's breast. And at first, you may think of this as a show trying to be funny and ridiculous. When you take a deeper look at what is really going on, you find something truly sad about Denji's nature. In the scene where Denji meets Aki for the first time and they're fighting in the abandoned alleyway, you really do start to see Denji's true character. On the one hand, you have Aki, whose entire livelihood was destroyed by the gun devil, and his only reason to becoming a devil hunter is so he can get retribution and one day avenge his family. And this is not an ordinary in the world of shonen anime. A lot of the most popular shonen anime right now always have a character who's been wronged by somebody, and their reason for being in the show is to just get vengeance. But the truly eye-opening part about this scene is the juxtaposition of Denji's motivation to becoming a devil hunter, seemingly the complete opposite of Aki's. And this is when you realize that Denji truly is somebody who can't relate to the rest. And this makes sense because nobody came from where Denji came from. Aki at least had a family, although it was ripped away from him, knew what it was like to have a family. Denji couldn't even get that. At the age of 16, Denji has been robbed of the experiences of a child filled with family, love, and laughter, robbed of the experiences of somebody who is 16 looking to finally become his own self, and is essentially robbed of everything good that should have happened to him in his life. So here we have a person who doesn't really know what it's like to truly be happy, giving such a trivial motivation to become something as dangerous as a devil hunter, and it makes perfect sense. Denji isn't normal. Denji has been robbed of everything, so of course Denji wants something so small, because it may seem small to me and you, but to Denji it means the absolute world. And once you understand this about Denji, you realize that his motivations aren't some comedic plot in order to fulfill his hedonistic urges, and it's more or less about him trying to be normal, because his life up until then was far from it. And given Denji's hellish life up until this point, when looking at the Aki scene again in the alleyway, you realize that Denji's goals are just as powerful as Aki's. Being as desperate as Denji is, it forces you to appreciate the little things in life, because without them, what do you have left? But what happens when you finally get the small things? What happens when you inevitably clear the very low bar that you set for yourself? What happens when you finally get it? And while appreciating the small things, especially when you have nothing, is a virtue that everyone should practice, unfortunately, it's not a way of thinking that's sustainable for humans. And this even applies to somebody like Denji, who's somebody who lived a hellish life up until this point, and with one small positive thing could change his life completely. Even he is subject to this human nature. You see, after watching his father commit suicide when he was all alone, meeting Pokita was something that was life-saving for him, and he lived most of his life enjoying the relationship he has with Pokita. But at the end of episode 1, he admits to himself that he wanted something more than Pokita. He wanted something more. Throughout the season, you see Denji set a bunch of goals he's able to achieve for himself, and then ultimately ending up getting them. At first, he wanted to fondle a woman's breast. Second, he wanted to experience his first kiss, and now he's aiming to finally make love with a woman. As he attains one goal, the next becomes bigger and bigger, and I think you know where this is going. Denji comes from a life of absolute hell, full with death, poverty, and loneliness. He never experienced what it's like to have friends or a stable family, or even a decent meal to eat at home. And it's this state he was in at the beginning of the show is what causes him to embark on this journey to one day have a girlfriend. At the end of episode 1, when he's all alone in that abandoned building, quite literally at his most down bad moment, Makima offered him a way out with devil hunting, and he took it. Not because he has a strong moral compass, or he has a strong sense of justice, it's because he wants to be a teenage boy, because what he is right now is not it. And as he's accomplishing these milestones every teenage boy wants to accomplish someday, he slowly becomes like one. Slowly but surely, Denji is finally experiencing what it's like to be a normal boy. And underneath the over-the-top comedy and appeals to sex that the show bombards at you, lies a path that Denji encounters while being at his most down bad in his entire life, and then follows blindly, almost like a path of breadcrumbs to a bird. And as he's going down this path, slowly gaining humanity, something awaits him at the end. And while only being one season into this show, I don't know what it is quite yet, but I know whatever it is, it's truly something beautiful. Thank you for watching.